Knowledge management. Here we go. We have a process, and the logical conclusion of the process will be a reference story. One of the logical conclusions of the process will be a reference story at the end of the day. Yeah. So if we take a simple opportunity, a simple piece of demand that we have dealt with, we have a business owner, we have understood their business and the way that the challenges that are affecting their business, and we have created an idea. It's possible that we've needed to use a reference story already in the second stage to create interest. It's possible that we've used some element of value. We've said to our internal customer, we've got an idea, we've seen it done somewhere else. It's possible that we could do this or this. So the reference story is very important from the perspective of using in new processes. This is where it may come in from the first time. Then we've used our epic model to create the story around this and to understand the real need. Then we've used our early qualifier to assess this real need and to get this opportunity prepared for the budgeting stage. Then we are successful and this opportunity gets budgeted, and implementation approval gets established, and the demand goes within the system itself. Then it's possible that we have allocated implementation people, we've allocated project managers, and we're on top of this opportunity or piece of work, and we move into stage 5 and we get it implemented to the best of our ability. Tomorrow we're going to look at stage 5 from the larger elements of stage 5 regarding more difficult opportunities which require a lot of behavior change and which require consulting. Today we will consider that we have completed an opportunity, that we have implemented it, and it has been successful. Hopefully, cross fingers and touch wood, we have a successful opportunity. At that stage, it makes sense to start thinking about how to manage the knowledge that we have created. And for this purpose, we're going to create a reference story that will help us do this. So, what does our reference story look like? So, a reference story is a case study, and the case study, or the purpose of the case study, is usually to give people a very complete understanding of what a particular topic was and what the solution was that came out of it. We're going to, we're not going to change that basic synopsis, but we're going to make it a little bit easier, because our reference story doesn't have to be something that convinces decision makers to put budget in. Our reference story needs to be something that creates curiosity and something that we can share across an IT demand management community. However, I will say that 18 months after beginning this project with Bayer, the reference story template still remains possibly one of the easiest things to do and one of the most difficult things to get people to do. Yeah, I have my own personal opinions as to why this is, and one of them is that writing about past business is boring. Nobody's interested in writing up academic work on things that have already happened, things that have taken place, things that are in the past. Yeah, I also think that sometimes it's very difficult to track results. However, it does make sense from a perspective of longer term sharing to think about a reference story environment. So the reference story will begin with a description of the background and the situation. So who was the sponsor that was being spoken to? What was the business unit? Which piece of business does it come from? What was the function that we were dealing with? And what was the description of the status quo? Yeah, so what was the situation, the business situation of the person that we were dealing with? How long does this have to be? Long enough to get your point across, but not too long so that it gets boring. 4 or 5 lines may be sufficient. Yeah, 10 lines will probably be enough. It is not the type of thing that needs a great deal of information to explain a background situation. Yeah. Sometimes the thing that takes a little bit more information is the problem, issue, challenge and pain and problem that was being focused on. So a description of what the problem was, what was the compelling reason, what was the driving event, what was the real need behind the opportunity that was being proposed. Yeah. So a couple of lines on this would be good as well. The next stage is to answer the question, why was the problem a problem? What were the potential consequences of not addressing this? At the end of the day, why did this big problem become so big that somebody decided to do something about it? And the answer to this question is usually within the organization. It was a problem, for example, for the sales department, but marketing also had an interest in getting it solved. Customer satisfaction people and the call centers also had an interest in getting it solved. And the operations guys, they were on top of it as well and also fully behind it. So very often the impact and consequences of a particular problem lie within the other people affected within the organization. Yeah. So then we have a small description of the capabilities and solutions that went into creating a final proposal. Okay, so this is a description of the product, a description of the service, a description of the solution. It doesn't need to be long. The long version can be captured in our total solution landscape for the situation where somebody is interested in going into it in detail. For the purposes of the reference story, that is probably one level too far at the moment. We simply need to know what the solution, the overall solution was behind it. How long does it take to get results? That's another part of the story. Could be 6 months, could be a year, could be 3 months, could be an instantaneous result after a couple of weeks of implementation. The results piece is naturally an important part of the reference story template, an important part of knowledge management. Okay, so this is our final exercise also for today. I'd like 2 reference story templates to be written up for an opportunity from your environments, and then we'll have a little reflection on what some of the extended uses and values of these could be.